Hey everybody, and welcome to my first of two videos on this, the Minolta Alpha, Maxxum, or Dynax, depending on what part of the world you bought your camera, 9. This is the most high specification 35mm film SLR ever made. It is an interchangeable lens SLR for professional users. It has a 14 segment multi-mode active autofocus area meter. Woo, that's a whole lot. That's a big mouthful. And what that means is that there are 14 metering segments and they are linked to the active autofocus area. It has shutter speeds in any mode from 30 seconds to as fast as 1/12,000th of a second. It's the only or one of the only cameras to reach that fast. Minolta was the only maker to reach 1/12,000th of a second. The viewfinder has 73% magnification, which is pretty small, but 100% frame coverage with a 22mm eye point. And what the eye point means is that if you have glasses on, let's say, your eye can be up to almost an inch behind the viewfinder and still see 100% of the viewfinder and frame coverage. It also has a bunch of interchangeable focusing screens, though they are really, really hard to find. And it has a multi-mode, multi-segment flash sync. And the flash itself syncs at 1/300th of a second, though it can also do high-speed flash sync to 1/12,000th of a second. However, there is a downside to this camera. It uses the nonsensical intelligent ISO hot shoe that Sony has as their proprietary hot shoe instead of the ISO 518 hot shoe, which is the standard hot shoe that normal nonsensical cameras use. That's the ISO 518. The Minolta Alpha 9 was targeted as a high-end professional camera. It was in fact the most high-end professional camera ever made by anyone. It has the fastest shutter speed and fastest focal plane shutter curtain speed, fastest flash sync that is, of any camera ever made. It was geared heavily towards sports and journalism photographers. It was produced by Minolta in Japan from 1998 until sometime between 2002 and 2006. I couldn't find the exact time or year even that this went out of production, but I did find old posts on forums as old as 2002 asking if the 9 had been discontinued. In 2006, all Minolta film bodies were discontinued, so it was certainly made no later than that. This was preceded by the 9XI, concurrent with the 7 and 5, and followed by nothing. Konica Minolta left the camera business and sold the rights to the Alpha mount to Sony, and they had one more generation of Alpha, Maxxum, Dynax bodies, but there was no successor in it to the 9. Some of this camera's DNA and design looks survive in the Sony cameras today, but there was nothing that directly followed it. So if you have your Minolta, Maxxum, Alpha, Dynax 9, let's go over what some of these buttons and features are on it. Now, it has a pretty simple interface compared to other contemporary professional grade cameras like the f4, 5, 6 from Nikon, the Canon EOS 1. It relies very heavily on dials and things like that. It's kind of a hybrid between the dial heavy professional interface and some of the electronics heavy professional interfaces, and it does a good job of balancing that. So let's see what everything is. Here, connected to these little tags are the strap lugs you would connect your camera's strap to. This is the exposure compensation dial right here, and allows you to set your exposure compensation if you would like it. You can either set it in third stop increments, as I have here, or you can flip the dial all the way around and set it in half stop increments instead. There we go. Whatever you prefer to use. I am a fan of the third stop increment. There we go. This is the exposure compensation dial lock that allows you to turn the dial and then lock it in place so it doesn't get moved. Underneath that, with this lever right here, we have the flash compensation dial, which allows you to adjust how much your flash is compensated. And you can see there's a little white indicator. That means my flash is going to be full, just standard power. I could underexpose the flash by up to 3 stops, meaning dimming it by up to 3 stops, or I could overclock the flash by up to 3 stops if it will allow me to. Not all flashes will. Here we have the flash hot shoe. These little tabs allow you to lift up the on-body flash. Not many professional grade cameras have an on-body flash. There's a little white dot right there. That is your index for your shooting mode: manual, shutter priority, aperture priority, or program. This is this little lever right here is your drive mode selector, and you can see on the back of that dial there is your drive mode. There are your drive mode options, and we'll talk about what each of those are in the second video. This little line and circle is your film plane indicator. This is your LCD information screen, shutter release button, and this is one of your control wheels right here. Here we are on the front of the camera. This grip sensor right here tells the camera whether or not someone is holding it and allows the camera to be activated or not activated. Activated if you are holding it, not activated if you aren't. This little red window right here is your autofocused assist light. This is your depth of field preview button. This is the lens mounting flange right here with your autofocus drive screw and lens lock release pin right there. This is your lens release button. This is your autofocus mode selector between manual and autofocus. And then your autofocus type, whether you're going to use single speed, automatic, or continuous. Automatic is where the camera will pick the best autofocus mode for you based on your situation. On the side here we have the film back release and the flash PC port. On this side we have the remote access port and function buttons, which we'll talk about in the second video. Here we are on the camera's back. There's a few things here. This is the on or lock button. There's no off, but there is a lock button. This is the viewfinder shade switch right here. Over here is a diopter adjustment. This is your meter mode dial, which allows you to switch between spot, center weighted, and meter, full matrix or full area metering. Auto exposure lock, auto focus lock. This slide right here next to the lamp illuminates the LCD. This is a rear control dial. This window allows you to see the type of film that's loaded in your camera. iStart on or off. iStart is a sensor up here that will have the camera start working or not be working if your eye is next to it. This is your flash control, whether you're going to use red eye, standard flash sync, or rear curtain flash sync, or wireless control. The camera's bottom has a few things. This is your battery chamber right here, where you would insert the batteries, and we'll see how to do that in video 2. This is an external battery pack connector. So if you have the power grip, this allows the power grip to connect to the camera, and it's got a very nice hiding cover so that you don't lose that. Tripod bushing, serial number, and made in Japan. To open up the film back, we're simply going to flip out this tab and rotate it. Now here we are inside of the camera. This is the film cassette chamber, and those are the DX code readers, and as you can see, this camera is capable of reading the full DX code, which a lot of cameras don't do. Film guide pin, and these are the film guide rails. The partial rails keep the film from moving up and down as it progresses through the camera, and these inner rails help sandwich the film with the film pressure plate over here to keep it flat as the camera takes photos. This is a film guide roller with some sprocket teeth on the top and bottom to help the film advance smoothly through the camera. Film take-up spool. That little orange indicator is the film leader indicator and tells you where to pull out your leader to when loading the film. Electronic contacts with the film back to let the camera know what film back you have, as well as any functions like the AF lock on this one, the standard film back, that are being used. These are some film guide rollers that help the film advance smoothly. Film pressure plate. And then over here we have the foam that blocks light out from the film window. And these are film tension springs that keep the cassette in place. And of course the shutter curtain right there. As I've said, this is the most high specification camera ever made. At its time, it was more advanced than any other camera on the market, and it includes significantly better specifications than the comparable Nikon Pentax or Canon cameras. tons and tons of stuff to be absolutely in awe about with this camera. So a couple things not to do with this camera. Don't touch the shutter and don't touch the mirror. If you touch the shutter, you can brick your camera. If you touch the mirror, you can de-silver it, which will impair your ability to focus and make your viewfinder dimmer. Don't leave your camera and lenses in the car. It's a good way to get them stolen, but in the summer, it can cause the oils in the lenses and camera to get thin and get to places they shouldn't be, or to freeze in the winter, break down and get gummy, and then stop lubricating properly once they get back to their normal temperature. Don't leave your gear in a plastic bag. Moisture will get into it, and that's a good way for fungus to grow on the lenses or in the cameras. If you're going to leave it in a plastic bag or plastic box, make sure you have a very good rechargeable desiccant pack that you recharge every time it needs to be recharged. Don't let your camera get wet, because even though the camera is weather sealed, the lenses might not be. So the camera can withstand some drizzle and things like that, but if your lens is not a weather sealed lens, it cannot do that. Don't leave your batteries in your camera when you're not using it, because that's a really good way for the batteries to leak and ruin your camera. When batteries leak, the stuff that leaks out of them follows the electrical contacts into the camera and corrodes important parts of the camera that render it basically useless. And just remember that your camera is a precision tool and should be handled with care and respect. And as long as you take care of your camera will take care of you. So if this video was helpful, please leave me a thumbs up. That lets me know I'm on the right track and that I'm making content which is useful to you. If you have questions or comments, please leave those below, and I'm happy to get back to you as quickly as I can. If you have suggestions for future videos, please let me know, and if I have the equipment and technical know-how, I'm happy to make those. If you are an amateur photographer who has taken photos with a Minolta Alpha, Dynax, or Maxxum 9, feel free to leave a link to those albums in the comments section. One last thing, thank you guys for watching, and take great photos.